Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today on the Out of Network Scoop webinar with Anagram. We're really excited to talk about how we're going out of network is a very trending topic right now in probably every single Facebook forum and buying group conversation that you're having. And we're really excited to introduce our panelists here. So my name is Jenna Slater. I'm head of strategic growth here at Anagram. I've been with the organization since we first came to market in the very beginning of 2017. And over the last 4 years, I've had the privilege of talking about going out of network thousands of times. Today, we have East Main Vision Clinic with us. Dr. Day, Danny, and Angie are all here to share their experience with going out of network with vision plans and how they've used Anagram to do so. And I would love for each of you to take a minute now and introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are and where you came from.
Thank you, Jenna. This is Dr. Day, and again, we're just honored to be a part of this discussion. And we've been here at East Main Vision Clinic. It started 13 years ago, and we've grown and made a lot of different changes throughout. And just again, happy to be here. And I'll let Danny and Angie chat.
I'm Danny. I have worked here at East Main Vision Clinic since 2014 as Director of Marketing and as an optometric technician working closely with Dr. Day. And I also admin the group on Facebook, Concierge Optometry.
And I'm Angie. I've been with Dr. Day since 2010. I'm the front office lead and biller, so I see through that side of the business.
Awesome, and I'm so glad that all three of you are here because each of you and your perspectives are going to be really important for the questions that I'm sure are going to come up today. Before we dive in, I think it's important that we take a step back and think about 2020 as a whole. Really hasn't been the year of vision we were all promised. A lot of unforeseen circumstances have stolen our thunder as the year of vision. And whether we're dealing with COVID and a global pandemic and the looming recession that it's brought upon us, we've all been faced with a lot of challenges that we couldn't have seen coming. And they're making us question about how we want to operate our business moving forward. But with that being said, I think it's safe to say that there are quite a few changes that are looming that we could have predicted. I've only been in this industry for 4 years now, and every single summer, something has happened, an announcement made by one of the vision plans in terms of changes that they're making, whether it's them acquiring one another and changing the contracts that we've agreed to, they're cutting our fee schedules and offering us even less money per patient. Maybe they're telling you you have to send all of your work to a new lab and you can't use the lab that you've been loyal to for years. There's also changes to product requirements and what's on your frame boards, which lenses you can offer your patients. All of these things have been happening for a very long time. And we've all been questioning for a while, do vision plans make sense? Is this the direction that we want to continue to move in? And now, with things like COVID, putting us in a position where we can't see as many patients every day, and we have to take things like social distancing and sanitation in between each patient into consideration for the safety of our staff and our patients, we were finding ourselves more than ever questioning, what do we want to commit to for the long haul? And how are we going to continue to make money and grow and enjoy our profession? And so today we're going to touch on the basics. What does it mean to go out of network, and how can that help you grow your revenue? What have other practices found successful? And hopefully we're going to answer a lot of your questions. We encourage you to send them in via our Q&A. We're going to get to as many of them as we can. But anything that we don't get to today, we're going to put together in a Q&A to send out to everybody who's attending so that we can answer your question. And then we will obviously encourage you to reach out and get in touch so we can have a more personalized conversation when all is said and done. So with that, I'm super excited to jump into the main event here and turn the majority of the mic over to East Main Vision Clinic, who's been with us since 2018. They made the choice to drop vision plans, not because of Anagram, but because it was the right move for their business. They knew this is what they wanted to do, that they didn't want to continue to chase after revenue. And it was divine timing that we happened to have found each other when we did. And we're so grateful for them today because they have seen it all. They've been with us through many iterations of the product, and they're going to be able to talk about how going out of network has allowed them to grow their revenue per exam by 20%. So with that being said, a little snapshot into East Main Vision Clinic. We've got 1 doctor and 17 team members in the state of Washington and over 8,000 patients. So now that we have a general understanding of the type of practice that we're chatting with, I want to jump right in here. And I would love to hear from all 3 of you, because a question that we get primarily out the gate is, well, how long do I need to plan for before going out of network? So in your office, how much time did you guys take to strategically think through how you were going to go out of network before you actually pulled the plug and took the leap of faith?
Thank you, Jenna. And this started, so this July was our 2 years from when we had not taken any managed care. Prior to that, it was probably 2 years prior to 2 years ago that we talked about it. And for sure, 9 months before 2 years ago, July, we made the decision that this is what we're going to do. We set our date, and we as a team got together and made a lot of decisions and scripting and marketing. And we knew it was a huge decision that we were making. Our practice at that time was about 45% managed care. So we knew, when we talked to a lot of vendors, helped us make some of those decisions. Like I said, we did scripting. And the big thing was, there's a tremendous amount of buy-in, that the doctor has to be ready and look at the numbers and what we're going to do. And the team that, we all stand alongside each other, that we can make this happen, because everybody has to have the buy-in. It's something that we need to all move forward, so we're all in the same steps, so to speak, as we move forward, that we can do this. And it was a lot of work. I'm not going to say it wasn't. It was never easy. And even to this day, we still work just as hard on our practice, but it's on a different, more proactive than reactive. And that's the biggest thing we've told other offices that have contacted us, that, this is something that we did. And we knew it wasn't going to get easy, and there was bumps along the road even after we, didn't take the managed care decisions we had to make on the fly. But again, as a team, we made it happen, and Anagram was right there from the very beginning. And we learned then that was truly a huge tool. It became more and more important to us, how much patients appreciated when we could have that discussion, that we were out of network, those type of things, and that we could still help them with the billing part. So that turned out to be really a valuable part.
And then I'll just echo too, Dr. Day is saying here is that, we basically had to plan almost as if we were starting a brand new business, and we'll probably touch on that some more, I'm sure. So all of that planning and strategy that would go into starting a brand new business is what we had to spend those 2 years doing, formulating a plan, branding, thinking about what our specialties were going to be, where was that lost revenue going to come from. So really it's kind of starting from the ground level of thinking of yourself as a brand new business owner.
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes up often in our conversations. To give people that are on the call today some context, exactly who did you drop, and which were you on certain plans before making the final step to being completely cash pay?
I'll let Angie answer that one.
So we hadn't taken, we weren't in with any managed care. The only insurance company that we were contracted with was VSP. And so we made the decision and we went out of contract with VSP in July of 2018. We did see an increase in others managed care once we did start with Anagram. So we saw a decrease in some of the patients of that sort, but increased in other managed care insurances.
And a few years before that, a large employer here had switched to another managed care, and we decided not to take that. That was probably 4 or 5 years ago, or longer. And so we kind of, that was maybe 5 or 10% of our practice. So we got a little bit of kind of taste for what it was going to be, but we knew it was going to be a lot more, a bigger part of our practice to make that decision. And like I said, we made that decision and we haven't looked back.
I love that part. People always have seems to have a tipping point. So for you guys, what was the final straw that broke the camel's back that brought you to this place?
And again, it had been kind of just, it's always watching your practice metrics and statistics and looking at the number of patients we had to see and the large amount of write-offs. And at some point we just said, you have to, as a business owner, you have to really value your practice and value yourself and your team's time and decide, again, the style of practice. And our style of practice has always been really high quality, lots of customer service. We've been there for our patients 13 years, all the time. If they need care from me, I can see them 24/7. And so they've been loyal patients, but that, again, was something we looked at as we move forward, that that was kind of the tipping point that we could make that difference and change.
When you got to the place where you had, sent in your letter and knew that you had 90 days before you were going to be out of network, what was your tech stack like? Were there any other vendors that you went out and brought into the practice to be proactive ahead of time?
We did. We worked on a lot of, in our office, working procedures and things we were going to do. And again, like we said, scripting. And again, Anagram was there from the very start. So we had a lot of time with them and the time to, learn the process and learn the scripting and role play. We did a lot of role playing and stuff. We didn't bring in many other vendors type thing. We talked with our lens manufacturer in our lab and just about, again, processes, that kind of thing. And they were all supportive and stuff, but it was really just kind of just getting our house in order, so to speak. We knew we had to have everything ready to go, and we were ready to go.
We did bring on a tech company, an IT company, to help us with some of that too. So we were very close to being compliant with just about everything, but they helped us find some areas that we could kind of shore up and efficiencies and things like that. So we did bring on an IT company, and it was about that time that we started exploring some marketing options as well. So we did bring on a marketing company that was around the same time as well. So I'm sure there'll be questions about marketing as well, but that was one of the things that we did invest in early on.
And something that comes up often is, and I want to break this into two parts, the difference between how did you retain your old patients and explain to them the change versus how did you capture new patients? So let's start from the first one. How did we retain our returning patients?
That first one, we, again, with the 45% managed care, I had thought erroneously that we would keep, at least 50% of those patients, but we probably lost 80% of that 45%. So there was, a lot of patients that they wanted to come see us and a lot of discussions and stuff. And we explained again about the out of network. So yeah, we didn't retain as many old patients, but that goes into the second part again with the marketing part, which I'll let Danny talk more about.
And real quickly on the retaining the patients that we did have, it was more of we explained to them what we were doing, why we were doing it, and explained to them that we could still bill their insurance. That was very helpful for them and for us. And the honesty and the, just letting them know exactly who we are, why we're doing it. It's for patient care. The scripting was really important for us to have that information and just be honest with our patients and let them know why and how we were still going to be able to serve them even better than before.
And just kind of touching on again, what Angie said about transparency, we opted at the beginning not to send an email or a message or a letter to all of our patients all at once, on the advice of many people that we would risk losing most of those VSP and other managed care patients, that they would get that message and just automatically assume that they could no longer come to our practice. And part of that was true, but we found that it was more important to us to be transparent with our patients and not risk ruining our reputation. We had built this practice, like Dr. Day said, on loyalty and on ensuring our patients could trust us. And so to not be transparent about that just wasn't an option. So we did send an email and let all of our patients know, but that gave us an opportunity when patients who actually wanted to continue to see us, regardless of their insurance, would call us. And, you know, some of them did end up leaving. Like Dr. Day said, we lost quite a few patients that initially opted to use their in-network benefits elsewhere, but we felt that it was definitely worthwhile in the long run to be transparent, honest, and keep that reputation that we had worked so hard for.
And that's a good point. I think initially and years ago, that may have been a good strategy to, when the patient would call in, then you would explain over the course of that year when then you've seen all the patients, to explain what you're doing and out of network. But with social media now, there's no way to, one person tells 1,000 kind of thing. So we learned, and right away, again, that was one of the bumps in the road. We had actually some town hall meetings. We invited patients in to meet with the doctor and the technicians, because there were some unhappy people. But once we explained it and we got over that, you know, there was still a lot of explanations, but again, then they understood, and there wasn't anything that it was all out in the open, so to speak. Yeah.
How deep did that explanation go into why you chose to drop or why their insurance has changed? Because we get asked frequently, well, if I was just last year a copay and this year I'm paying out of pocket, what's happened here? So did you go into a lot of detail?
And we did, you know, the detail of just kind of why we made the decision. And again, it all went back to patient care, product, that kind of thing. And our patients expected, you know, they've always had that excellent customer service. So they were used to that we could continue providing that, you know, the changes, the analogy I would tell patients is, you know, if you were a teacher and you had 1 year, you had 20 students, but each year you added one more student every year, over 10 years, then it's not as manageable. It's just, it takes away some of the quality time with those individual students. And that was the same thing we felt with our patients. We wanted to have that time, and we knew we weren't going to have every patient stay, and we respected their finances. And, you know, even doctors now, if they stay on managed care, there's many things you can do with under the umbrella of managed care. It's just our decision and our style of practice just made that decision.
Yeah, and of that 80% that you lost the first year, now that we're 2 years out, how many of those do you think have returned?
We've had a majority of the patients that, well, I would say maybe half of those that left have returned, running back to us, being disappointed elsewhere. Now that we're not willing to maybe pay out of pocket and thought they'd, you know, see if the other side of the fence was greener, have returned to our office running. So it's really dependent. You do have to, if this is something that you're considering, really pay attention to your patients, pay attention to, like, is there a loyalty there? What kind of practice do you have? It's not, you don't earn people's trust by telling them that they should trust you. You have to build that trust year after year. So when our patients left, they realized how different it was outside of here. And so when they came back, they were so much more appreciative. And those are the patients that you want.
Yeah, and they understood, and we would still see them even in the interim for some of the medical care. And then they, like I said, within a couple of years, probably half of those have come back. And we always kept the door open, very positive with, you know, whatever the decision is, we certainly appreciate. So it was really a respected type thing where they respected what we were doing, and we respected if the finances didn't work at that time. We did, you know, talk a lot more about financing options and different things so a patient could come in here. We really tried to be creative so that if they wanted to come in, we would try to make a way for them to come in. Again, we didn't ever apologize or lower our fees. That's something we never did. We're proud of the fees that we charge. We're proud of the care we provide. And with our umbrella of care, there's so much value in that patients know that. So we don't ever discount that, but we're willing to work with them if they want to come in. We'll make it happen.
And from the very beginning, we were very positive about what we were doing, that there was never any apology for no longer taking their insurance. It was what we had to do to be able to take the very best care of our patients. It was never an apology ever. And we still feel that way. It's only given us better opportunities to take care of our patients and prove to them that we're worth that.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. In terms of bringing in new patients, people get nervous about no longer being listed on their panel. So how has that impacted the amount of call-in volume that you're getting?
Well, I think the one thing first comes to my mind, and I'll turn it over to Danny, but kind of the list was something we knew was going to happen, but what kind of then just dovetailed was kind of in the marketing part of it, we had really good Google reviews and Yelp, so that was kind of became our list, and it was a huge impact where we see 2 to 3 patients a day because of our reviews will come in type thing. So that was, again, a huge thing that we did, and I'll let Danny talk more about the marketing.
Well, I think that when you think about the revenue lost from our managed care patients, think about the amount of money that we wrote off was kind of like our marketing bill. That was our marketing budget at that time. And that was, 40% of our revenue was going to that managed care. Whereas we can redirect that funds and actually use that towards marketing the way we want to be. So while we weren't on managed care websites and lists, we are now showing up in Google, in Facebook, and all those digital marketing areas that we weren't before. So if you really think about it, it's a reallocation of those funds. So we actually increased our marketing budget knowing that we wanted to grow from 0.5% up to 2% of our revenue, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it was a decent amount of an investment. And over the past 2 years, our new patients has grown the most in our office. As we have said, we did have some attrition when we went off managed care plans. And so we have seen a 5% increase in our new patients, which has made up, again, because we're targeting them specifically using a marketing company that knows the algorithms of Google and knows the ins and outs of digital marketing. That company has been able to bring in that, like Dr. Day talked about, the 20 to 80%. So that 20% of our patients that are coming in, the increase of 5% of new patients is now bringing in so much more revenue because it's those targeted patients, people that we know are going to want to come and see us for our specialties and for those reasons that they're finding us on Google.
Was it challenging for the rest of the staff to learn a script? Did you find that if one of the two of you were speaking to a patient, they had a higher likelihood of staying versus if somebody else in the office was engaging with that patient?
That all actually was very well planned before this all happened. There are always going to be people who are more comfortable speaking to a patient about things, but our biggest thing was stay positive. This is a good thing. What we're doing is a good thing. There are always people who take a little bit longer to get comfortable speaking to a patient, but generally the planning and prepping beforehand and scripting, practicing, role playing, 9 months before we did this, it was very important. It was, the whole thing was very strategic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm seeing some questions come in about exactly what plans you guys are working with through Anagram, so I just want to address them really quickly. Our service has the opportunity to access the 8 main vision carriers. So that's VSP and Cigna, which typically is administered under VSP, IMED, Aetna, and Blueview, both Aetna and Blueview typically administered under IMED. And then we have Davis, Superior, and Spectera as far as vision plans go. Important to keep in mind that it's VSP that you can do assignment of benefit. And I understand that your office does this, right, guys? You accept assignment on the out-of-network reimbursement, so the check is still paid back directly to you rather than to the patient.
So we initially thought that would be something that would be easier for us. However, we found it easier to just when the patient leaves, they pay their balance and the check goes to the patient at the end instead of, so then our billing is clean. We don't have to bill the patient afterwards. If there's any issues with that, it's not our concern. So it's actually worked out perfectly. If a patient has trouble getting their reimbursement, they'll call into us and we'll reach out and try and fix that for them. But for the most part, we are not accepting assignment unless, of course, the patient has some sort of need, or if they can't pay that, or we don't offer it outright up front. It's only if they mention that might not be something that they're able to pay up front. It's just kind of one of our, I guess, payment options, and one of those things that we did as far as being able to see those patients that couldn't do it otherwise.
I think initially we thought just, presenting the total fee to the patient would be a bigger stumbling block, and it just wasn't. With the right presentation and education, the patient, pays half now, half at dispense, and that works 90% of the time. And then we just say, yep, and then, they're going to send you a check to your home.
And I think it really just comes down to what we were talking about as far as scripting goes and the confidence of the staff and the buy-in. So going back to the training that we did in preparation for all of this was, we know we're going to be speaking about higher dollar amounts to these patients, and we need to keep in mind that we're not shopping with our own wallets. So it's really important that, everybody was on board with that to begin with, and we were. And going into that confidently and not timidly was, I think, the biggest thing that made that not such a stumbling block.
Yeah. And I would explain to patients, they would ask me in the exam room, and I would just say, I've been honored and proud to be, your eye doctor for this many years, and we've had to make these decisions, and I would love to continue, but I understand. So again, we never shy away from answering the question, but I truly miss the patients that still haven't come in from 2 years ago. They're good friends and community members and that kind of thing. And my heart is that they'll want to come back in at some point, but the door's always open, and they know us type thing. So we still have the reputation part.
When it comes to we're having some questions about pricing. Do you guys list on your website how much your fees are? Do they know that before coming into the practice that you guys are going to be a cash for service?
Yes, absolutely. We do not have it on our website. However, when the patient calls to make an appointment, if they are a self-pay patient or an out-of-network patient, we do explain to them what they will be paying up front. We try and be very transparent always. We don't like surprises. It's just not good customer service.
Yeah, so we check their benefits so we know what, at least for the service part, what this can be covered, and then we say the opticians will review the benefits with you when you look at glasses, that type of thing.
And that is what we use Anagram for, is to be able to, that's the only way with certain vision plans that we're able to access that out-of-network benefit information. Otherwise, we would be guessing, and that's obviously, like I said, not good patient care.
Yeah, and we've got a few questions that have come in about how the program works, and we're not going to get into those details on this call. So if people want to see a live demo, please reach out. We'd love to show you based on your practice's use case. But just to give a high level, our system will allow you to find out what their reimbursement rate will be by collecting the patient's name, date of birth, and last 4 digits of their social. So then our system, similar to an in-network portal, will then generate the dollar amount or the allowance that they're owed in their out-of-network rebate, as we like to call. And then you're able to communicate to your patients how much of a discount they're going to get because of their vision plan. And I'm curious, from your guys' perspective, do you call it a discount? How do you refer to their out-of-network reimbursement? So say, we've got a VSP patient or an IMED or Davis patient, and they have $70 towards a frame and $50 towards their lens. How do you walk them through what their benefits actually cover?
Well, as far as glasses or exam, we just explain to them that we will be billing their insurance and they will get a reimbursement directly to them from the insurance. So we quote the glasses, lens, and frame as are just usual and customary, and let them know what their vision discount plan is going to be reimbursing them. Yep. Expected reimbursement. Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's great.
Yeah.
So in terms of your guys' practice growth since going out of network. Can you speak to what your actual number, I mean, you don't need to give your numbers, but how growing since being off panel has looked for you?
And we've grown 20% since that 2 years, and by the end of, that first year, and for sure the second year, even though we saw significantly fewer patients, our revenue was the same or slightly higher, just even as we kind of, worked through all of that. So, tremendous amount of growth. And we knew going into it too, like Danny alluded to, some of the specialty areas of our practice. So we knew we wanted to devote more energy to medical, glaucoma, dry eye, some of those specialty care that would help kind of on the revenue side type thing of seeing that. So that's definitely been a big part of our practice growth, and also just having more time with patients. And I've read articles of other doctors through the COVID thing that they have found that, they've had more time with patients, and all of a sudden their revenue per patient has gone up significantly. So that's just happens when the clinic slows down the pace a bit, and you're able to talk at each different touch point about what you do, how you can do, lifestyle questionnaires, and just then talking about the optical. And so it just makes it more fun and more relaxed, and the end product is the patient gets better service with better product, and we have more time and the business prospers.
In that first year, we saw about 890 less exams that first year without VSP. However, we did not take a dip in revenue. So it speaks more to the time that you can spend with your patients when you're not on the gerbil wheel, when you can actually take the time, go over, like Dr. Day said, with all of the specialties that you're interested in, that you can spend that time and actually address the patient's needs and go into detail and work with them. And they're more willing, once they're educated, to purchase the pair of glasses or visit your specialty center.
We have some offices that are asking, how would your strategy be replicated in their practice if they accept multiple vision plans? And I know that this is, just kind of a food for thought exercise because you only dropped VSP, but do you believe that the same strategy would transfer into practices that are moving away from more than just one plan?
And again, every practice is different with, socioeconomics and demographics and what the doctor's goal is. And we've talked to other offices that, you can make a 1, a 3, or a 5-year goal type thing and say, I'm going to write down what I'm going to do each year and start to move in the direction. But the doctor really needs to look in the mirror and say, where's this practice now, and where does he want it to go, and how much does he want to work type thing. So it can be, you can slowly move in that direction type thing. So you would start to see maybe, fewer comprehensive exams, and then start to build other niche parts of, again, like we've talked a lot about specialty care, medical care. I would go out to doctors in our area and talk about dry eye and medical care, talk to physicians, you talk to the ER. So there's a lot of things you can do, so I would take a half day and go do that. So there's a lot of things you can do. But again, the doctor needs to really decide where he's at in his practice, how many years he's going to be practicing, and where he wants to go. So it's very doable, but it does need to be strategic. And I think the number one thing is you need to have, you and your staff need to be on the same page, motivated and excited about what that plan is. And that needs to come from the doctor, who has to be really, ready to move forward and ready to, work more at these things. But to me, that's the fun part of practice. I think, with all that's been going on with COVID, we just have to make sure we turn these obstacles into opportunity. It's time to have fun with your optometric practice, enjoy your patients, take a few more minutes, and you can, find out about their families and all that stuff that optometry was built on years ago, even before managed care. That's what we need to get back to, is the family style of care with the technology that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And we hear also when staff are maybe afraid that there's just a lot of fear about what will happen to their job if they no longer are accepting vision plan in-network patients. And What was the process for you guys? Were you afraid before you did this? Because you sound so confident now that I think maybe for some folks who aren't feeling that level of confidence, it would be important to talk through what happened there.
Yeah, absolutely. We were all scared. We were very scared, and it was kind of one of those things that we didn't really, talk about as much at first. And then one of us was like, "I am scared," and we realized after that, if you're not scared to do this, then you just don't care enough, because it is a really big leap. It is very scary. It's for the doctor, it's his business, and it's all of our jobs. So that in itself gave us buy-in. We all needed to make this work. We needed to do everything we could to make it work. So that's a really important question. If this is something that you're looking to do you have the buy-in? Do you have the time? And is everybody going to put in the effort? Because it isn't just something that one person in the office can do. Everybody has to have buy-in. Everybody has to care enough and understand that you're pulling up your bootstraps and you're going to war. You need to keep your patients, and you need to work and do everything that you can to take the very best care of them and keep them.
And that's just general in any business, and in any time, there's always going to be, again, the adversity in different things. This is just one small part of practice that maybe this will, be the movement to make some differences in your own practice, so you can start to, again, enjoy things, whether you make it slow or you decide maybe you can work within the managed care model. That certainly is fine, but it's been, very worthwhile.
One person asked to kind of go back to a previous question, the increased revenue derived from seeing more private pay. Was that from out-of-network vision care patients, or was that just cash pay, no insurance patients whatsoever?
There was a bit of both. We do have an increase in self-pay patients. We also have patients that say, it's self-pay, you don't take my vision plan, so I'm just going to pay for it. And then we would then ask them what that is and let them know that we can still handle that for them. So some of them call in expecting to do a self-pay, but there was an increase in both. All of the out-of-network vision plans we didn't take before. We did start getting more of those calls, as well as just self-pay patients. We just saw an increase in all of it.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to marketing, and because, patients are having to wait 2-3 months to get in for an eye exam. So they're kind of surfing, they're looking for other offices, so if you have really good marketing, social media, like Danny said, Facebook and Google, they're going to call. And there's a lot of patients that will say they just don't want to wait that long, or they want to get their child in for their exam, that kind of thing. So, having that part of the practice really does help get the phone calls in, because there's lots of people out there that are searching that either can afford it or don't want to wait.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. We're having more and more questions come in about exactly how you use Anagram. So I maybe just take it from the top. Let's say I'm a patient and I'm calling in to book an appointment, and I ask, do you accept my iMed? Will you just run through a practice patient for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would ask that patient what type of insurance they had. It's an out-of-network insurance. I would go ahead and let them know that they will be paying out of pocket, how the billing works, that it's just a little bit different than it is for an in-network. They would pay their exam cost up front, and then we would bill their insurance for them. I'd call them back I'd tell them that I'd give them a call back to let them know what that benefit is, if they care. Some don't care. They're just, because we give them it's usually between around $50 for the reimbursement on the exam, but we'll have that information for you when you come in for your exam, unless, of course, you'd like for me to give you a call and let you know what that looks like beforehand. So I would then enter the patient's information into the system, get them scheduled for their appointment, enter in the information into Anagram. It usually takes about a minute. Some of the plans, it takes a little bit longer to load that information. And then I can see their exam, contact lens, and then lens and frame benefits. So I would either call the patient back if they wanted us to do that, or let them know at their exam what their reimbursement is going to be. They pay when they come in for their exam, and once chart's completed, we go ahead and paid for. We go ahead and send that through anagram to their insurance, and the patient expects a check in about 4 to 6 weeks.
The patient really likes that we're still doing all the billing, we're still doing the hand holding, we're doing all the checking. That was a big thing. We've always done that at East Main, and we've continued to do that. So it's a nice service, and they know there's going to be a difference in cost, but a lot of patients just don't want that hassle, and it's just a huge roadblock if you don't provide that level of care. That's just another umbrella of care that we provide.
And that is something that we mentioned to them, that we purchased this platform so that we can still bill your out-of-network insurance and take the administrative burden off of you as the patient, so that you just get that reimbursement.
If you come across a patient that thinks the only option is to use their in-network, how do you explain to them that you can still help and that it's going to actually lower the cost of their visit?
I think it's important to explain to patients and just to educate in general that insurances do not dictate who the patient can see for care, and that is of any type of insurance. You always should have the option to go out of network or to cash pay. And so I think that that's just kind of a societal thing, that people don't believe that they have options when it comes to their insurance plans. And so I think that just comes down to education. One of the biggest roadblocks there is that the more you educate, you have to continue to do it over and over again. So we found that we do use a service to send out email blasts to patients, and about 20% of those are read. So we probably had to continue to send those messages for the first year. I would say every 3 months or so, we were sending that education again through email or talking to patients on the phone. As far as the actual verbiage of how that conversation is happening, Angie can probably explain that a little bit more, but we are just, really going back to our reason behind what we did, the reason that we are out of network being that restriction on patient options, and we want to give them the options for the quality care that they have come to know.
And also with that, you have to accept that there are going to be patients that do just feel like they need to use their in-network benefits. They will not come to you. And in short, those are the patients that were going to get the very least that they possibly could. They weren't going to do the best. They weren't going to get they want their free exam and they want their free glasses. And those aren't the patients that you want anyway. You want somebody that is going to trust you and have buy-in and understand that what you're offering and what you're prescribing as the doctor to them is what is best for them. And you're not going to want every single patient, and you don't need every single patient. You want those ones that are willing to believe in you and trust you and spend money in your clinic. Yeah, make those purchases and support your business. Absolutely.
And it kind of, comes down to really the 80-20 rule, and there's so many analogies, 80-20, and so we don't need 80% of the patients that maybe it's cost and other things why they can't come in, but with 20% of the population and with the economy doing well, there's just been a lot of things that have worked in our favor, and there's a lot of patients that recognize that quality of care. So we only need a small percentage because we don't have to see as many patients, and it works. So that's.
Well, that brings up a good point. People have mentioned recently that they're worried COVID is going to make people more cost conscious. Have you seen this play out in your practice?
Not at all. And our busiest month was July in the last 2 years. So we've been busy, and again, we've been very accommodating patients, and we're still social distancing, and so we're working some extra hours, that type of thing. But patients are anxious to come in, and I think they're just in the mood to buy, and they want to purchase things. And again, we have time to explain all that, so we're not in a hurry, and we can take the time, and it's the revenue per patient has held, and we've been just excited that patients are spending the money. We know that may change as time goes on, but again, that's business. When we see the next obstacle, we're going to make that an opportunity also.
If you want to talk about taking an obstacle and turning it into an opportunity, it is actually a positive thing to think about, that patients come in for their exam. They don't want to go shopping at several other places to find glasses. And yes, they can go online, but once they're here, it's a one-stop shop, and you can kind of play that up a little bit too. Like, you're here now, we've got the doctor's prescription for your glasses. Let's help you find your perfect pair of glasses. So that sounds like an oversimplified or an exaggeration, but that really is true. that patients really aren't going out and shopping as much as they have in the past. And I'm sure different businesses have different competition, but our biggest competition here locally is another ODMD practice, and not necessarily an online source. So for us, that has worked out pretty well, that they want to stay here since they're already here.
Yeah. Well, and that brings up a good point. We're having quite a few questions about medical billing. So do you guys coordinate the benefits? Do you file out of network for their vision plan and in network for their medical? How much of your patient base is medically focused?
We do have quite a few of our medical patients, and we do have some that have both medical and out of network benefits, and we do bill both of those insurances accordingly. We have a vast majority of our patients that are medical that we would end up referring to our dry eye center or our glaucoma, the specialty center. So we do absolutely bill both, and that is a huge part of our success, is being able to fill the gap with your medical patients, where, you know, when your routine vision goes down, you still have those other specialty, the subspecialties that are going to feed your clinic.
Yeah. And somebody else asked, are you guys having issues with people taking their prescriptions and walking out of the optical for an in-network option?
That's something, again, we talk about a lot. Again, you read it in journals and just the capture rate type thing. And the other thing we've learned through this COVID is now when I'm in the exam room, when I'm done, you know, I'll explain my consultation and what I'm prescribing to the patient. And I'll say, I'm going to have my optician come in and go over those benefits with you, and there's financing options. And patients, when you tell that to the patient, they never say no to the doctor, so to speak. They're always courteous, and they'll always go over to the optical. We never print a prescription in the exam room. That is something we don't do. If they want the prescription, we're like, absolutely, we'll get that in the optical. It gives the opticians a chance to clean their glasses and to start, you know, generate a little discussion, a little further lifestyle. And that probably has made a difference in almost 20% of patients that had said they were going to go. Some still do, of course, but it gives us a chance to show them what we can do in the optical and the amazing products that are over there.
Yeah, and someone pointed out that we've been talking a lot about revenue and less about the bottom line. So in terms of your guys' total net income per patient, how, or not even per patient, just at the practice whole, was that answered earlier that you've seen 2% growth? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like that might have been mentioned.
So like I said, the first year, the actual revenue to the practice was about even. So we saw that many fewer patients and the revenue was the same. And now it's actually 10 to 12% higher than it was with managed care. So it's the net part has gone up significantly in the last 2 years.
And with COVID, and I understand you guys are not at full capacity right now, do you see that trending in a different direction?
And that's a good question. We are still at our 75% kind of patients in the office type thing, kind of pre-COVID. So we're not seeing 100% of the volume of patients, but again, our revenue is over 100% of what it was before. So we're actually reevaluating and looking at our schedule all the time to make sure we're seeing as many patients as we can, but to provide the care. But that's something we've learned through the COVID too, that, you know, we don't have to see as many, and we can add more if we need to, but so far we have not needed to.
Now, with a few years under your belt, do you wish that you, or are you in a position to say that you could offer training to people that, let's say, like we collaborated together, because we're getting so many questions about your successful scripting and how can we set people up to do what you guys have done? Do you think that you have a lot of like detailed learnings that you could pass on to help other people do what you've done?
Yeah, and you know, I've been working on a different idea that may become public in this near future that will be much more granular about some of the things that we've done and make it in a format that, you know, doctors can take it, you know, piece by piece. So we're looking at possibly a 5 or 6 part webinar series to again go into a little more detail. We were honored to have Anagram ask us to do this, to kind of talk again more general terms about the unconventional practice. So happy to do that. And again, tremendous value that Anagram gives our practice. So happy to do that. But we know there's a lot of questions out there still, a lot of need, and a lot of just, what's going to happen next kind of thing. So myself and the team were talking about something which we would let everybody know, and we would let Anagram know too, that maybe we'll answer more granular questions in the future.
Yeah.
Able to help other offices
Absolutely.
in the same way that we would have appreciated help.
Right. Well, and it's power in numbers, right? The whole industry will benefit from more offices making the statement that they don't want to rely on vision plans. And I think something that speaks volumes from our perspective is we've helped so many people drop over the last 4 years, and we've never had somebody come back and say, I wish I could go back and network, not once. And so from your guys' perspective, how do you feel about your job now? How has it impacted your day-to-day in terms of your satisfaction with your profession now that you don't work with VSP, and do you have any regrets?
I, for one, can say I don't have any regrets. Absolutely. Just coming to work feels less like the analogy of the hamster wheel. We are, like Dr. Day said, we're able to spend more time with our patients. We're not feeling, I'm a technician, I work in the clinic with Dr. Day seeing patients, and I don't feel like I'm having to rush him on to the next patient. It's okay for Dr. Day to spend that extra 5-10 minutes with a patient to explain things and to then refer them on to our dry eye center or to our glaucoma center, or just to have that conversation about glasses, or the first time progressive patient that's nervous about needing reading glasses, So it feels like more of a slower pace, but also we're seeing fewer patients, but it feels like more quality time. So I think just coming to work every day does feel more like a family and less like a job. It's a wonderful feeling.
And like I said before, I certainly work just as hard, but it's more, again, reactive. Like I mentioned, it's fun, it's more invigorating. I've been in practice a lot of years, and it still feels like just the first few years. It's just, it just makes it kind of a new kind of fun and enjoyable. And all of us here, our heart is to serve, and it just gives us more time to serve and really care for our patients.
Do you think you could have done it the way you've done it without Anagram?
I can say it would have been a lot harder, just being able to have that under our belt, that we can do this for you. The platform was easy to use and self-explanatory, I guess, once you're in there, and just having that in our tool belt to be able to explain to our patients what we're, that we can do that for them. It wasn't a deciding factor in whether or not we would drop managed care, but it absolutely was integral. Yeah, it absolutely integral in what we did. It saved so much time. I'm not even sure that we would have been able to get the benefits for a lot of the insurances.
It's kind of an interesting thing that we didn't mention is that our timing was just absolutely perfect. The day that we went out of network with that last managed care plan was the same day that they decided to stop offering out-of-network benefits to providers. So we stumbled through that whole scenario as well, learning how that now there was no other way to access those benefits for patients other than the patient calling in and getting them themselves, and then having that managed care plan tell them that they should stay in network. So that kind of was a back and forth that we went through early on as well, but Anagram was amazing at helping us navigate through that and worked literally night and day to make sure that they were able to get those benefits for us. So that is the one part that I feel like I don't know how we could have done it without them.
Right. It really is a small investment. Anagram, we picked several vendors kind of in our inner circle type thing, and Anagram was there from the start, was always dependable and reactive. And again, a small investment for a huge benefit for us and for our patients. And again, it's just another way that we can have that umbrella of care and really spoil our patients, so to speak, that they don't have to have that on our plate. We've invested in Anagram and they've invested in us.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for your time. We still have quite a few questions, but many of them are really granular, and we're going to follow up with each of you independently to talk about the specific plans you want to drop and how their benefits work and how we can help. I think that this was wildly helpful and informative. There's a lot of things people are taking into consideration right now with everything that we're facing, and making sure that you've got marketing, a script, the right messaging. All of these things are critical to make the transition successful. And it's because of practices like yours that did this before it was as urgent as it is now that we can say we know that it works. And I encourage everybody on this call that wants to know exactly how Anagram works to get in touch with us, and we'll walk you through it. And yeah, thank you everyone for your time. And East Maine Vision Clinic, you guys as always have been just the absolute best. So thank you again.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you.
And we're honored to be here and just be a part. It's really about independent optometry, independent practitioners, and we're all here to help each other. And that's the key as we move forward to build a better tomorrow. That we can't predict the future, but we can prepare for it.
Absolutely. Onward and upward, guys.
Okay.
Thank
Here
you.
we go. Yes. Everybody have a great rest of your day.